It's really kind of wild when you think about it. We're
Mhm.
talking about India, where the need for food is so huge, and yet you've got nearly 23 crore people, wow, facing problems directly because of all the food that goes to waste. Just seems crazy, doesn't it?
It's a huge disconnect. It
Mm.
really makes you want to look closer at the systems and what people are actually doing, their behaviors. The scale of the need and the waste, too, is pretty
Yeah,
shocking.
definitely. And that's exactly what we're going to deep dive into today. We're tackling food waste in India. And to help us get a grip on this, we've got some really interesting stuff. There's this Times of Agriculture article, transcripts from YouTube conversations with Tessa Clark and Sasha Celestial. One, they're the people behind Olio. And we've even got some promising info on a platform called SwapEat.
So we're going to, break this whole problem down, right? We
Mhm.
want to see just how much food is being wasted in India, the main reasons why it's happening, what it's doing to people and the planet, the impact of it all. Then we can dig into some of the cool solutions people are coming up with, both in India and globally, taking inspiration from what's working elsewhere.
Exactly. To kick things off, let's try to understand the size of this thing. The numbers are kind of hard to believe, honestly. India's Ministry of Agriculture says we're losing about 50,000 crore rupees worth of food every year. I mean, 50,000 crore, that's a lot of zeros, a massive amount.
It's a huge drain on the economy. It shows you right away how much money is lost because of food waste. Forget the environmental stuff and the social cost. Even just the economic side of this is a huge hit. All those resources and potential economic activity just gone.
And India's not doing so well on the global scale either. The UNEP, the United Nations Environment Program, their food wastage index report puts India at #2 in the world for household food waste, right behind China. The numbers are staggering, 68.7 million tons wasted every year, which works out to about 55 kilos per person. It's like each of us throws away our own weight in food every couple of years. Crazy, huh?
68.7 million tons. I mean, it's hard to even picture that. But when you say 55 kilos per person, that's something you can understand. That's a lot of food coming from each person in India on average.
Yeah.
Makes you think about your own habits, for sure.
It really does. Now, a report from the NDRC in the U.S., the Natural Resources Defense Council, says something like 40% of food there is just left uneaten. And zooming out to all of Asia, they're wasting about 1.34 billion tons annually, with India and China being the main culprits. Definitely a worldwide problem, but it feels like it's especially bad in our part of the world.
When you put it all together, it's obvious that food waste isn't just some small local thing. It has huge implications globally for how we use our resources and for the planet's health overall.
No doubt. And to add to that, there's this stat from FSSAI, the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India. It says that about a third of all food produced in India gets wasted or spoils before it even gets to our plates. So it's not just what we're checking out from our fridges. There's a ton being lost way before that, on the way from the farm to us.
That one-third figure is really important because it shows that there are weaknesses at every point in the chain. It's not just about how people behave. There are problems in the production, the handling, the distribution, all contributing to this huge loss.
So we've seen how huge the problem is. Now let's dig into the why. Why is there so much food waste in India?
Well, the stuff we've got points to a bunch of things, all connected. One big one is what happens after the harvest, the post-harvest losses. Think about the journey food takes from the farm. The transportation isn't great, the storage places are packed and not well maintained, and then they mishandle it during distribution. All this leads to food going bad before it even reaches the market or the people who want to eat it.
So basically it's a mess in the infrastructure and how they move stuff around. It's sad to think that all the hard work farmers put in can be wasted just because of problems further down the line.
Exactly. Then there's this lack of awareness, a real problem. The Times of Agriculture article talks about this mindset, which honestly is pretty common, where people feel that since they paid for the food, they can waste it if they want. They don't see the bigger picture, the impact it has on the economy and the environment. It's like tunnel vision. They only see what they paid.
So like their own little cost-benefit thing doesn't consider the big societal impact at all. How do we even start to fix that awareness gap?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And this is where it gets really interesting. The article also talks about how big Indian weddings contribute to this. Research suggests that about 40%, that's almost half, of the food made for these huge events ends up in the trash.
40%, you're kidding. With the amount of food they make for these weddings, that's a crazy amount of waste. Makes you think, maybe there's a different way to do the catering. Maybe figure out how to manage the leftovers better.
Yeah, it's something to consider. It's such a big part of the culture, these celebrations. But finding a way to keep the party going without all the waste, that could be a good way to make a difference.
And the article also mentions how even what the market wants can cause waste. Think about it. Perfectly good food, totally edible, gets rejected by industries like the cosmetic companies or healthcare just because it doesn't look right or it doesn't meet some weird standard that has nothing to do with nutrition. It's such a missed opportunity to use those safe resources for something else.
You're right. It makes you question those standards and what's important to those industries. Maybe they can be more flexible, find new, creative ways to use food that doesn't fit those super specific demands.
So we've got post-harvest losses, people not realizing how much waste really costs, the impact of these huge social gatherings, and then markets being picky for no good reason. It's a whole bunch of things mixed together.
For sure. It's a super complicated problem with roots in infrastructure, people's attitudes, cultural norms, and even what industries do.
Now let's switch gears and look at what happens because of all this waste.
Yeah.
What are the actual effects of this massive amount of food being wasted?
Sadly, the biggest and most direct effect is that people go hungry and are malnourished. Feeding India did a report, and it says that of about 194.4 million people in India, that's like 14.3% of everyone, don't have enough to eat. And to top it off, India is ranked 111th out of 125 countries in the 2023 Global Hunger Index, which shows you how bad it is. It's heartbreaking.
So much food thrown away while so many people don't have enough. It's a horrible irony. It's really worrying.
Totally. And this isn't just India's problem. Food waste here affects the whole world. Producing food takes a lot of resources, and when we waste it, it has a huge environmental impact. We're talking about more greenhouse gases being released globally. The food we throw away is directly adding to climate change.
Yeah, that connection often gets missed. It's not just the food that's lost, it's also the environmental damage from making that food in the first place.
Exactly. And then there's the money side of it, the economic cost. The article says that the roughly 40% of food wasted every year in India is like almost 92,000 crore rupees down the drain. Almost 1% of India's entire GDP gone just from wasted food. And remember that 55 kilos per person we talked about, that shows how much money each person is losing too.
It's not just the food itself, right? It's all the things that went into making it, the water they use for irrigation, the land, the energy, and the huge amount of work farmers put in. All of that is wasted along with the food.
You got it. When we waste food, we're not just tossing out a meal, we're throwing away a whole chain of valuable resources and human effort.
Okay, so we know how big it is, we know the complex reasons behind it, and we know the effects are serious, hurting both people and the planet. So what's being done about it? What can we do? Our sources talk about various efforts happening in India to reduce this waste, and they give some global perspectives too, especially from Olio and SwapEat.
The Times of Agriculture article points out some key strategies. They say that making the entire supply chain more efficient is super important. We need good infrastructure, like storage that controls the temperature, and better ways to manage inventory. That'll help cut down those post-harvest losses we discussed earlier.
Makes total sense.
Right.
If we can make sure the food travels efficiently from the farm to our tables, we'll automatically reduce a lot of the spoilage and waste.
They also talk about handling surplus food better, particularly from those big events like weddings, finding ways to get that extra food to NGOs and other groups who can distribute it to people in need. That's a crucial step.
So instead of throwing it away, we turn it into a resource for people who need it. Smart and the right thing to do.
The article also stresses how important government policies are. They say it's vital to work with international organizations like the FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, and the UN itself to develop national strategies. We need to reduce food waste and encourage people to be more responsible about how much they consume.
Having support from the government and cooperation internationally can provide the framework, the resources, and the knowledge to really tackle a problem this big.
And it's great to see new startups popping up in India that are focusing on specific aspects of food waste. WasteLink, for example, is doing some cool stuff. They collect food byproducts from different industries and turn them into animal feed. It's a smart way to make something useful from what was considered waste, moving towards a more circular economy.
That's thinking outside the box. Finding a productive use for food that would end up in a landfill.
Totally. And then there's GreenPod Labs. They're all about prevention, which is great. They've come up with these special packaging sachets inspired by nature that keep fruits and vegetables fresh for longer. This directly tackles those post-harvest losses. Remember, India is the second biggest producer of fruits and vegetables in the world, but a whopping 40% of it goes bad.
Yeah, 40% just going bad, that just shows how much we need solutions like what Green Pod Labs is doing. Stopping food from spoiling in the first place, that's the most effective and sustainable way to go.
Now let's look at what's happening globally, specifically Olio. In the YouTube transcripts, Tessa Clark and Sasha Celestial1, the co-founders of Olio, explain that it's a free app that connects people in local communities to share their extra food and household stuff. It's been really successful, with over 8 million users in 63 countries, even getting recognized by the UN for their work on sustainability.
That's impressive growth. What was the thought behind Olio? What got it started?
Tessa Clark talks about this moment when she was moving and was told she had to throw away all her good food, stuff that was totally fine. Growing up on a farm where wasting food was a big no-no, this just felt wrong to her. She realized there wasn't an easy way to share this food with people nearby, something community-based, and that's how the idea for Olio was born. I think we've all felt that pang of guilt looking at leftovers in the fridge, so her experience is really relatable.
Yeah, I've totally been there, having extra food that I don't want to waste but don't need myself. It happens to everyone.
And the app's pretty easy to use. You snap a picture of your extra food and put it on the app. People nearby get a notification, see what's available, and if they want something, they can request it and arrange a time and place to pick it up. Tessa mentioned that half of all the food listed on Olio gets requested in under 21 minutes. That's super fast. It shows you that people actually want this food and that no one will want this idea is just wrong.
Wow, 21 minutes. That really proves that there are people out there who can use that food, busting that myth that nobody wants it.
Right. Exactly. They also have this cool Food Waste Heroes program. Volunteers team up with local businesses like Tesco, Pret, and Planet Organic in the UK. They collect the extra food from these places, put it on Olio, and then people in the area can pick it up from the volunteers. It's a win-win situation. Businesses get rid of their extra food without throwing it away. Volunteers are actively helping with sustainability, and people get free food that they'd normally have to buy.
Sounds like it works out great for everyone. Businesses save money on waste disposal and do something good for their community. Volunteers get involved in sustainability, and people get perfectly good food for free.
And their business model is smart, too. They charge those businesses for the redistribution service.
Yeah.
Makes sense, right? Olio is providing a solution for their surplus food that's both socially and environmentally responsible. So they're a sustainable business tackling a sustainability challenge.
I like that, how it comes full circle. What kind of impact has Olio had since they started?
They've done a lot. Over 200 million portions of food redistributed, leading to huge savings in carbon emissions and water usage. And they've gone beyond food now with a new feature called Borrow, where users can lend and borrow household items within their community. It's all about sharing more broadly.
Expanding to non-food items feels like the next logical step. It encourages a more holistic approach to waste reduction and promotes a sharing economy.
Now let's talk about SwapEat, a tech-driven platform all about food swapping. It's still in the early stages, being developed by team innovators at SwapEat, RGPV Bhopal in India. Sounds like a promising homegrown initiative, similar to Olio. What's their main goal?
Yeah, it does. What are they trying to do with SwapEat?
They want to create a super local platform for people to exchange meals. Their goal is to reduce waste by letting people share food directly within their community, get people more involved with each other, and ultimately make healthy food more affordable for everyone. It's all about that direct neighbor-to-neighbor exchange of home-cooked or extra meals. So it's more localized, maybe even personalized, with a focus on food made at home.
Focusing locally could be really good for building stronger connections between people. What kind of things are they putting into the platform, features-wise?
They're developing a whole bunch of cool features. They've got live meal mapping so you can see what's available near you, a chat feature so users can talk to each other directly, secure login with OTP, smart delivery optimization if you need it, AI that can detect what food is in the picture to help people list their items correctly, AI-optimized delivery routes, calorie counting for people watching their health, freshness checks to make sure the quality is good, and even live translation so people from different language backgrounds can communicate. That's a lot of tech going into solving a very real problem. The AI stuff, especially the food detection and freshness checks, those sound really innovative and helpful for making people comfortable with sharing food.
They do sound interesting. So what about sustainability as a business? How do they plan to make it work financially?
Their idea is to have subscription options for people who want unlimited swaps, a small platform fee of about 5 rupees for each successful exchange, and premium listings for things that aren't food. They're also thinking about getting into quick commerce later on, so multiple ways to make money and keep the platform running. Importantly, they're really focused on sustainability, aligning their work with the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, specifically Goal 2, which is zero hunger, and Goal 12, responsible consumption and production. They also really emphasize community and affordability in their vision.
It's good to see that they care about sustainability and making a positive social impact. Building that community aspect seems to be key for food sharing platforms like Olio too.
Absolutely. But they also acknowledge the existing food donation networks in India, mentioning groups like Akshaya Patra, Feed India, and the Robin Hood Army. They point out some of the problems these groups often face, like food going bad during transport and distribution, donors not being sure where their food is going, and the struggle to consistently find people who will donate food.
It's true, there are already people doing great work, and knowing the problems they face can help us come up with better solutions. Maybe SwapEat's tech-focused approach can address some of these challenges. For instance, how do those specific features, like the AI food detection and freshness checks, help them overcome these hurdles?
That's a great question. AI food detection makes sure the listings are accurate so people know exactly what they're getting, which might make them more willing to use the platform. Freshness checks, although they're still working on them, are meant to build trust and transparency about the quality of the food. That could address the worry about spoilage. The smart delivery and AI-optimized routes could also help food get to people faster, reducing the chance of spoilage compared to more traditional donation methods.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, let's use what Tessa Clark and Sasha Celestial One talked about in the Olio transcripts to look at the important parts of changing people's behavior and the bigger systemic issues behind food waste. Because as we've seen, technology alone isn't going to solve everything, right?
Yeah,
We need to understand why people waste food and how to encourage them to be more sustainable.
absolutely. Tessa talks about one big challenge: getting people to actually share their extra food. Even though listing something on Olio takes like 10 seconds, there's this mental block people have to overcome. They doubt that anyone wants their food. No one will actually want this kind of thinking. It's a deep-seated belief that needs to change.
It's true, that thought is always there.
Yeah.
We need to work together to change that perception.
It's interesting to hear what people who use Olio have to say, what motivates them to share. Turns out it's not just about reducing waste. They get to meet their neighbors, build connections in their community, and they feel good about sharing. So it's about those social connections and making a positive impact. It's more than just the environmental stuff.
So it's about building relationships and doing something good for the environment at the same time. That community aspect seems to be really important for getting people involved.
Tessa shared a statistic that puts things in perspective. In the UK, half of all food waste happens at home, while only about 2% comes from supermarkets. This shows that we as individuals have a huge impact on the food waste problem. It's easy to blame big companies, but these numbers tell us we all need to take responsibility for what happens in our own kitchens.
That's a good point, something to think about. It shows that while systemic changes are important, our individual choices and habits have a huge impact overall.
And to fix this, we need changes at different levels, not just individual behavior. We need changes in society and in government policies too. Tessa talked about making it mandatory for big food businesses to report how much food they waste. This transparency and accountability across the industry could be a big step forward. It might make businesses more serious about reducing their waste.
It could, for sure. How did Olio get businesses to join them?
Tessa said it was slow going at first. Some businesses were hesitant. But then they started to realize that being socially and environmentally responsible was important, which led to more partnerships and companies being more willing to tackle food waste. Changing mindsets and business practices at that level takes time and persistence.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Sasha Celestial One talked about creating a service that people actually find valuable and want to use. She highlighted how Olio has grown organically, mostly through word of mouth, which shows that people really like what they offer. That kind of growth, where people recommend it to each other, is a strong sign that it's a useful and appreciated service.
They both also emphasize the huge connection between food waste and climate change, something people often underestimate. Think about all that land used for food production. The water waste, 25% of all fresh water, goes into growing food that's never eaten. And the crazy amount of greenhouse gases released from food waste. If global food waste was a country, it would be the third largest emitter of greenhouse gases. It's a huge environmental problem. It's not just about the food we lose, it's about the resources wasted and the damage to our planet's health.
Those numbers really make you think about the impact our food waste habits have on the environment.
Tessa also brought up the confusion around best before and use by dates, which leads to a lot of food waste at home. She suggests using your senses, sight, smell, and taste to see if something is still good past its best before date. Those dates are mostly about quality, not safety, but use by dates are about safety and you should always follow them. It's an important distinction. Lots of good food probably gets thrown away because people don't understand these labels.
Right, a little bit of information can go a long way in reducing waste at home.
She also touched upon this tough reality of food poverty existing alongside food waste, especially in the UK. She made a good point. Solving food poverty isn't just about giving away extra food. It's about fixing the bigger issues like low wages and lack of access to resources. It's about tackling the root causes of inequality, not just putting a Band-Aid on the symptoms.
Yeah, redistributing food helps people who need it right now, but it doesn't fix the bigger problems of poverty and inequality.
Lastly, community-driven initiatives like Olio rely heavily on their volunteers, their ambassadors, and food waste heroes, as they call them. It seems like these people who are passionate about the cause are the ones really driving positive change.
It shows you the power of people coming together and taking action for something they believe in.
Looking ahead, Tessa Clark talked about Olio's big, inspiring goal to be used worldwide by 2030, not just for food waste, but for all kinds of waste, tying in with the idea of Earth Overshoot Day, which is the day when humans have used up more resources than the Earth can replenish in a year. Her ultimate vision is for people to move away from constantly buying things and towards sharing more and embracing a circular economy. It's a hopeful vision of a more sustainable future where sharing is the norm, not the exception.
So our deep dive into food waste in India, looking at all these different sources, shows that it's a huge, multifaceted problem with consequences that affect people's lives, the economy, and the health of our planet. But we also see hope in innovative and community-based solutions like WasteLink, GreenPod Labs, the global success of Olio, and the potential of SwapEat.
And like Tessa Clark said, we shouldn't underestimate the power of individual actions.
Yeah.
Billions of small changes, even seemingly insignificant ones, can add up to a big, lasting positive change.
This brings us to a question for you, our listener. Knowing how much food is wasted in India and seeing solutions like Olio and SwapEat, what small but meaningful step can you take today in your own life or community to help reduce food waste? And how might those individual efforts, multiplied by millions, create a truly significant and lasting change? We encourage you to check out these apps and learn more about this important issue.